Hello and welcome to pdfsupply.com. Today we're going to be testing an IC200CPUE05. This is a VersaMax processor, which also includes the Ethernet port. It's currently powered up. I'm powering it using an IC200 PWR101 power supply, which is 100 to 240 volt, 120 to 240 volt AC. Basically this test is going to be to test all the ports, the features and functions. I'm going to talk about how to test it to see if it's a good working processor and how to configure it in Proficy Machine Edition. Okay. Well, currently it's powered up right now. As you can see, I have a power light on and an OK light on. If you guys have any red lights or no lights at all in this area, check two things. First, check that you have a good working power supply. Maybe change that out and use a different power supply. But if you're sure the power supply is working and you don't have an OK light on, then that immediately means that there's a problem with the processor and it would probably need replacement or repair. Okay. Now once you do have that in working order, as you see here, what I want to do is to test these two ports and to get the processor into run mode. So what I have here is my programming cable with an attached HE693 SNP232 adapter. So this is a 9-pin to 15-pin adapter, male to male, and I'm going to plug that in my port number 2, my 15-pin port number 2, which is located at the bottom. Now in Proficy Machine Edition, what I've done is I've created a new blank file for the CPUE05, and as you can see if you follow my arrow here, under main rack we have the power supply, the PWR101, and the IC200CPU E05. So what I'm going to do is right click on this CPU, click configure, and I'm going to go over to my settings. Now notice that what I've done here is my switch run stop switch, I have it enabled, which means that I'd like to check the functionality of the run and stop switch. So if I make it enabled, that means if it's in the off position, I will need to turn it on in order to get the power supply, the CPU into run mode. Okay. The next thing is, if you look across the top at these different tabs, I'm going to go to Ethernet, and what I've done is I've established an IP address which is something that won't conflict with or is not the same as anything else I have on my network. Alright, so that's what I would recommend that you do, is make sure that you use a number, because we're going to be pinging this to see the reaction of the CPU, make sure it's working, and I don't want to be pinging something else that's already configured. Alright? So the first thing we'll do now that we have this configured is go to the lightning bolt icon, which is going to toggle us online between the software and the processor, and then you'll get a green handprint. Now start to notice down below you have a status bar that's telling us we're in monitor mode. It's stopped and disabled. That means that the run position is stopped and the outputs and inputs are disabled. Our configuration and our logic are not equal. We're going to hit that green handprint again, and we are now in programmer mode, and we're ready for a download. But before we do that, since our configuration and logic are not equal, we're going to go to Target, Online Commands, and we're going to hit Clear Controller and I/O Fault Tables. Okay, and then this will keep us from getting hung up when we actually do the download. So now we're going to do the download and run, or download and start active target icon. Now first thing it's going to ask us is what do we want to download to the controller. In this particular case, just the top two selections, which is hardware configuration and logic. Okay, there's no need to write anything to permanent flash memory for this simple test. And then next it's going to ask us if we want to turn on the outputs. Okay, now I'm still in stop mode, and it's telling me the controller is not in run mode after you attempted to start it. This may be due to a run stop switch position application decision or fault, which is correct. So one of the features is underneath of this panel that says labeled CPUE05, there's a little switch right underneath, and I'm going to flick this into the top position. Now I'm in run mode, not only on the processor itself, but also in Proficy Machine Edition. If you look down below, again, follow my arrow, we're in programmer mode. The processor is in run mode. The inputs and outputs are enabled, or configuration and logic are both equal. You should be at this point in the same status that I'm in run mode. If you're not, check your feedback zone right here, and it'll give you information as to why you're not. And if you can't understand it there, you can go to Target, Diagnostics, to the Info Viewer table. Now the Info Viewer will turn into a fault table viewer, and it'll tell you exactly what the problem is. And you can click on it to expand if you need further information. Okay? So, but at this point you should be in run mode. The next thing I want to do, since I've got the processor in run mode, is to start testing my other ports. Okay, obviously I've gotten port 2 tested. So the next thing I want to do is take my other adapter, which is a 9-pin to 9-pin male adapter. Okay, and this is going to be used for my port number 1. So I simply disconnect my programming cable, apply the adapter, and now we're going to select port number 1. So the first thing that I see on the processor itself is that port number 1 is blinking, which means it's communicating, which would indicate that it's a good port. But just to be sure, of course, we go back over to Proficy Machine Edition, and we make sure that we're still in run mode and that we are still connected, as you can see that I am. Alright. Now the third thing, of course, is that, as I mentioned before, we selected a IP address. So we want to take, I have a network cable here, Ethernet cable, and I'm going to plug this into my Ethernet port, which is located on the bottom right hand side. Now once that's plugged in, I'm not sure if you guys can see this on the video, but on the bottom right hand side I have a selection of LEDs, and the top LED is labeled LAN. Now that light, once I've picked up an Ethernet feed, will start blinking green, telling me it's active. So what I'm going to do in that case, I'm going to go back to our computer. I'm going to go to Command Prompt. If you guys don't have this automatically when you open up, you can go to Search Program Files and type in Command Prompt, and you'll get this screen. Alright? And what I want to do is ask it to ping the address that I've selected. Alright, once you've put the address in, the IP address, we're going to hit Enter. Okay? Now I've gotten 4 out of 4 replies, so it's working perfectly. Now just to double check that I haven't established an IP address that's already being used in here and it's giving me a false sense of security, I'm going to unplug this cable and I'm going to re-ping it. Alright, well, all you have to do is hit your up key, your up arrow, once, and it'll give the same command with the same address, and hit enter. Now in this particular case we're expecting to not see any reply. Alright, and that tells us, that isolates us, it tells us that we've only tested this particular Ethernet port. Alright, okay, so now I've tested port number 2, port number 1, the Ethernet port. I know that I can get the processor into run mode safely with no errors and no faults, so I feel it's a good working processor. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you guys that you're probably unable to see on the video is that in this particular case, the memory battery is located actually on the CPU itself. I'm holding another CPU, and there's a door labeled battery holder. Hopefully you guys can see that clearly. And what you want to do, if you ever have to replace the battery, is you can use a small screwdriver or even a plastic tool. What you want to do is make sure that you're careful not to damage the plastic case. And the battery that holds the memory is located right inside this little sleeve that goes in and out. All right, it's a button type battery. This is a good example. It's a BR2032 3-volt battery. All right, and then it just goes right back in. So you could always test that, make sure it's working okay. Always make sure that you have a good working battery in there. They don't cost much, they're easy to replace, and they go right in the top. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I feel this is a good working processor, and that's a complete test. If you guys have failed to follow me in any of these areas, including the Ethernet ports 1 or 2, getting the processor into run mode, the processor's start or stop switch relating to the run mode or shutting it on and off the run mode, any of those things fail, then it's a processor that would likely need replacement or repair. A CPUE05 is something that we do commonly repair here at PDF Supply. We offer exchange programs, new and remanufactured products. So if that's something that you need, please see us at pdfsupply.com. Thank you.